Good afternoon. This is a testament for the unbelievers. Now, I usually classify unbelievers into two categories. Now, this could be different. I just came up with this. So you have those people who completely reject any possibilities of a higher power, and then you have people who believe in it because they were brought up that way. God was in their life just because it was pounded into their head, but they're still skeptical when it comes to thinking about it. They're skeptical to most of the things that they can't explain. They're those people that are afraid of the things they can't see, and therefore, if they can't see it, they can't explain it. So, this is my testament. This is a big thing today people struggle with, is explaining to the unbelievers how to believe. So here's what I have to say about that. If you just sit and think about all the things that you learned in your science classes at school, if you even paid attention to any of that, which most of us didn't, if you think about the anatomy of the atom, how the atom works, how it interacts with everything around it, how the cell in your body is so small but yet it's required for life, and how all the functions of the cell work. Atoms are pumped in and out of it. It has all these different parts to it it's amazing how something that small can work that way. If you think about that, if you think about how your body works, how reproduction works in humans and animals, how your organs function, how everything works together, and most especially your brain. The human brain is one of the most intelligent, most complex machines that has been known to man, known to anything. You could power a lot of things with a human brain. That sounds kind of sadistic, but you could, because that's the kind of power that's in it. Most people only use half their intelligence that they're capable of with their brain. So with that being said, if you think about all these things, how molecules behave, how physics work, all these things, you really think that all of that just happened because of a random bang in the middle of the universe at a random point in time. No super mastermind of any sort was involved behind creating any of this. All this was just a random happening, random going on. So that's what I would ask somebody who claims to be an unbeliever. And they would ponder about that for a minute, but most likely they would just say, well, I'm still an unbeliever. And then, or they may not. They might think of that, and that might be sensible. So just think about that for a second. Think about all of those things that work, and all of the things that I didn't mention that work the way they do. Think about how nature was created, how perfect cycle without the ruination of mankind causing it issues works out. How we use natural resources such as coal and oil and natural gas, and then we burn them and the byproducts get to use by the plants. So if you think, and then all things that die in nature, they just decompose and are reused. Nature doesn't waste anything. It's like an endless cycle. If you think about the nitrogen cycle, all these things, and that once again brings us back to the question, how does that happen with just a random Big Bang? I'm not here disproving the Big Bang. However, I'm thinking that it probably had something to do with God. Thinking that's probably where it started. It didn't just happen just because it happened. And then people that become scientists, they think that there's no way that spirituality is tied into that. Well, there's another thing that brings me to my next point. Science requires faith. You have to have faith, but so does spirituality. So if you think about all the things that scientists study, all of those things had to have originated by a creative mastermind, because space itself doesn't come up with all that stuff. And now, on to the second category of believers who have grown up with it being pounded into their head, and that's just all they do. They go to church on Sunday. They say their prayers at night, and they just run the motions. They're just in the tradition, but they're not really thinking about it. They're just doing it just to do it. And when it comes to thinking about God being involved in some things that they don't usually think he could be involved in, that's when they shut off. Well, that isn't possible. There's no way. Well, maybe it is. These are the people that, like I said, can't comprehend the things they don't see. But that isn't the case. Don't be that person who just runs the motions. If you're going to church and you sit in there and you think, I really don't want to be here, or I'm just doing this to put on a show, you're kind of like one of those people I'm talking about. So maybe get out of that. Maybe that isn't for you. Maybe that isn't your way of choosing to worship. So maybe get out of that. And when you say your prayers, think about the prayers. Don't just say them while thinking about something else. Now, how would I know that? Because I do that all the time. I say things while I'm thinking about something else, and then you forget what you just said. So it's not really coming out of your heart, but it's just coming out of your mouth. And then you have the unbelievers who pray to God, and then they don't get their prayers answered the way that they think that they're going to be answered, and so they don't believe. So, and then you have the people who think, well, back in the old times in the Bible, God always came out of the heavens and did this and that and this and that. Well, why doesn't he do that today? Well, maybe he still does. It's just not direct. He doesn't come out of the sky, come down to the foot of your bed and give you whatever you want whenever you want it. That isn't how it works. He answers it indirectly. It might be sending someone into your life or something that shows you something that you wanted to know. You might read something and then it provokes a thought. It gets you on the right track. Somebody could give you something. Anything could happen. Be open to all those possibilities. Don't just think that he's going to sit up there and press a button and it's going to just, everything's going to be all right. That isn't how it's going to work. So my testament to the unbelievers is open your mind a little bit. Think about things. Don't just stick to your rigid testimony. Think about what I'm saying right now. Think about all these things that occur or that work the way they do that might be a possibility of a divine intervention. I'm not very well spoken. Some of the things I say don't make sense because I don't plan out these videos. The most important part of this video is that there is a God in heaven and he sent his Savior down to this earth to save you. He's still working for you. He's still helping you, even if he's not standing right there next to you that you can see him and hear him talking in your ear or coming down and handing you something that you need. Be open to all things. And keep in mind that not every prayer you send up is going to be answered. Some things God doesn't want to hear from you. Other things you ask of him, he might not be ready to give that to you yet. So be open to all those different things. Whatever happens is whatever happens. Sometimes it's just down to fate. Also, not everything that happens to you is God intervention. You tripping on the step, going up the steps is not God necessarily. It's just you didn't step right. So keep in mind these things. God is there. You just have to look for him. You have to be able to recognize the signs. So before you go and out, completely harden your heart against them and shut them out of your life, think. Think about the things I say. Pull out the key things in the jumbled mess of my words right now. But anyway, that is my message for today. Guys have been asking for another video. I found today to be a good time to come out with another one. But that is my message for today. So think on that.